Conservative media and many Americans are sure that we're in the middle of a war on police, that it's never been harder or more dangerous to be a cop in America. But the numbers don't actually bear that out. According to the FBI, 41 police officers were intentionally killed in the U.S. while on the line of duty back in 2015. This number marks a decrease of nearly 20% compared to the 51 law enforcement officers killed in 2014. 41 police officers dead in 2015. In fact, in each of the past 3 years, the number of fatal attacks on police has been below average for the past 3 decades, even back in the high crime times of the 80s into the 90s. 2013 saw a historic low, and 2015 is now tied with 2008 for the second lowest total in recent history. And so those are the facts. Now, of course, any police death is a tragedy, whether it's an accident or if it is in fact intentional. And none of this is to say that there isn't danger to being a cop. There simply isn't a war on cops. There is not a crusade by regular civilians to kill as many cops as possible, as you have been told is the case by conservative media. But still, in a 2015 Rasmussen poll, 58% of voters said they believe that there was a war on police in the United States. A comfortable majority of the country thinks that, despite the fact that there is no information to back it up and statistics to show that it is 100% historically inaccurate. And so that's a striking disconnect between perception and reality. But I want to put a little more context on it. So with that 41 cops killed, what else happened in 2015? Well, other people died, and they died at the hands of police. In fact, between 975 and 1,186 people were killed by police, more than 100 of which were unarmed black men. So more than twice as many unarmed black men were killed as police through the course of the year. Now, of course, many of them criminals, many of them armed with weapons, which conservatives will also say they have every right to have on them whenever they want. But still, that means that in most cases it's a justified killing. Some stats put it at about 25% are eventually called justified kills, but that doesn't mean that the cops actually go to jail for the other ones. But I want to expand on that final point about the unarmed black men, because in fact, police killed blacks at 3 times the rate of whites when adjusted for the populations where these shootings occurred. And although black men represent just 6% of the U.S. population, they made up nearly 40% of those who were killed while not carrying any sort of weapon. And so why would that be? Why would it be that if you are a black unarmed male, you are significantly more likely to be killed by a police officer than a white unarmed male? And we already know the answer to that. It's not because every black male is a master of jujitsu and can kill with his bare hands. It has to do with perception. It has to do with fear. It has to do with the idea that the police have that when they see an unarmed black male, he is still a deadly threat to their lives. It's fear that is driving the response, not the actual person in that case. And when you look at the actual breakdown of the numbers of those killed by the police, the idea that there's a war on the police becomes even more ridiculous. Because remember, there were 41 cops killed through the course of 2015 across America. But 47 people died simply by the tasers of the police. More killed just by the tasers than all of the cops across the country. Which means that if 41 dead cops means there's a war on cops, 47 people dying by tasers means that there is a taser war on civilians. 33 people, by the way, died by being hit by a cop car, and 36 were killed in custody, either being beaten while being restrained, being left without their medicine, starving to death, dying of thirst, being baked alive in prisons while being held there. Nearly as many people died while they were being held by the authorities, those who were supposed to be most responsible in these cases. Almost as many died as the police officers across all of 2015. And so why does this matter? Why do these numbers matter so much? Because the perception remains amongst most cops, apparently, and those who lead them, amongst much of the population, that there is a war on police. They believe that when they go out there and they do their job, that they're under constant threat. They think that any call could be the one that ends their life. Any person they talk to could pull a gun on them. And that does lead to deaths, not of cops, but of those individuals, those civilians. Because police in America escalate the use of force in a way that cops in other countries simply don't. Because cops in other countries are not taught to fear every person they come across. We need to spread this information. Because while cops are not in nearly the danger that they imagine they are, their imaginations are killing people every single day across this country. And that's my final judgment.